have been asked by a few different persons to try to explain the difference between intake manifold vacuum and ported vacuum and how that affects the ignition distributor. To do this, I'm using our 1969 Shelby with a 428 engine. We have some cars are a little bit newer that have a little different equipment, exhaust gas recirculation, and they also use a ported vacuum signal. If I have enough folks asking me for details about that, I'll do another video. But for this one, before I start talking about the two different kinds of vacuum, let's talk about why we have a Vacuum Advance Diaphragm to begin with. On the ignition distributor, the faster an engine is rotating when it's running, the sooner we have to send a spark to the spark plugs to give the engine time to begin burning the air-fuel mixture in the combustion chamber. If we're going to do that, the air-fuel ratio mixture doesn't start to burn or combust until after the piston is already going back down the engine. We lose power. So by advancing the spark, we get a jump on how soon we start the combustion process. By the time it starts, the piston is very close to top dead center and can be sent down with more power in its power stroke. In order to change the timing of when that spark gets sent, we will do what's called advancing the ignition timing a little bit, or fire off a little sooner to give more time with the fast running engine for the piston to get to the top of the stroke before the power stroke. With the Vacuum Advance solution, we use vacuum pressure against a small diaphragm that has an arm that connects to distributor breaker plate inside distributor, and it will move the ignition point opening a little bit earlier in the rotation of the engine. All gobbledygook, sorry about that. Anyway, I'm going to first show you an example of manifold, intake manifold vacuum. This is coming off of a vacuum key that normally sends vacuum pressure to the automatic transmission modulator valve. I don't have another good place to tap into it, but here's what's happening. I'm going to use the vacuum gauge. I'm going to disconnect the vacuum modulator rubber vacuum line, plug this into it, and you'll see with the engine running, intake manifold at a certain measure, and it's measured in inches of mercury. That's the measurement standard. If you take a look, it's showing about 17 inches of mercury intake manifold pressure. That's a good reading. If you look at the needle is steady, it's not bouncing around. If it was bouncing around, it would be indicative of intake valves that are beginning to leak, or the very high performance intake camshaft prime, but this is a stock cam, so that's not the case. Anyway, that's intake manifold pressure, the vacuum. The other type of vacuum is ported vacuum. It's called ported vacuum because it's taken off of a port from a channel in the carburetor above the throttle plate. And as the throttle plate opens, this port starts to get affected by the vacuum from down below the throttle and sends vacuum signal. There are usually two areas that ported vacuum is used for. In this engine, only one. It goes to the Vacuum Advance Diaphragm, which I'll get into detail in a few moments. In our 1973 Mustang convertible, it also is used to open up the exhaust gas recirculation valve and also to supplement vacuum going to the transmission modulator. Here is where the ported vacuum nipple is on this Holley 750 CFM 4-barrel carburetor is located. Right there on the side of the carburetor. When I plug in my vacuum gauge, we have 0. Watch what happens if I open the throttle a little bit. This will go up. Yeah, we're now to just over 15 inches of mercury. Open the throttle a bit more suction is applied, it was almost 19 inches. Okay, so how does it affect the car? Well, down here on Distributor, the silver canister is the Vacuum Advance Diaphragm. The ported vacuum goes down to the Vacuum Advance Diaphragm, and as vacuum is applied, it causes the ignition timing to advance. And let me give you an example of what that looks like. Could you hand me the vacuum pump over there, please?
Yep. Oh, boiling hot.
Pick it up from the handle. Anywhere you can, that's fine. Thank you.
Why is it so hot?
It was getting hot air over there.
Oh.
With this vacuum pump, I'm going to connect it to the vacuum hose that goes to the Vacuum Advance Diaphragm on the Distributor, and then I will apply vacuum. Now currently, the engine is idling at about 720 RPM or so. As I apply vacuum and the timing advances, that is going to increase in speed. First thing to notice is that the needle is not moving. So that is a good Vacuum Advance diaphragm. It's not leaking. Notice also we're now running at 930 RPM. So it definitely advanced the timing. I release the vacuum and it goes back to normal idle speed. So that is ported vacuum, intake manifold vacuum, which gets applied to the distributor, typically ported. So vacuum only gets applied when the engine throttle is open for the carburetor.
Want to explain this thing, where you connected it? Because you haven't.
This is a timing light that has a built-in tachometer I put it on here so I could get the tachometer reading to show the impact of vacuum advance being applied to the distributor. I could have shown you the ignition timing changing also, but it's really hard to see down there, much less photograph, because it's so tight on this engine. And already one time in preparing for this video, I managed to hit a fan blade at the tip of the timing light. It scared Linda. I don't want to scare her again. So anyway.
Okay, but you connected, that's powered by the battery.
Yeah.
And then you've got...
Number one ignition wire. That's an inductive lead. It's called the trigger. And it triggers this strobe light to flash. And so with that, I'd be able to look down at the timing light on the harmonic balancer, which has markings for timing on the engine. I'd be able to tell how far advanced are we in our ignition timing. This one's supposed to be set for 6 degrees before top dead center. So that's where I have it set.
Okay, I guess I needed to understand this wire going to that hose. Why that hose? What is that hose?
That's number one ignition wire. It goes to number one spark plug.
Okay.
And that's where we index off of when we set the timing for an engine.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. We can kill it. I can turn off the engine.